The Great Hall of the Galactic Military Academy was built for giants. Its ceilings rose so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Its doors were wide enough for the largest species in the known universe to walk through without bending. Everything about this place was designed to remind small creatures that they did not belong here. Park stood in the middle of this hall, feeling very small indeed. She was 22 years old. She had black hair cut short for practical reasons. She wore the gray uniform of a first-year cadet, and the patch on her shoulder showed the blue and green of Earth. She was the only human in the room. She was also the smallest person present by a significant margin. Around her stood cadets from 12 different species. They were the tallest. They stood nearly 3 meters high, with thick blue skin and 4 arms that ended in hands capable of crushing stone. They were shorter but wider, covered in natural armor that looked like polished bronze. They had 6 legs and moved like insects. They were thin and pale, with eyes that saw in complete darkness. All of them were looking at, none of them looked friendly. "So this is what Earth sends us," said a voice that echoed through the hall. Commander stepped forward from the crowd. He was but larger than the others. His blue skin was marked with silver scars from 100 battles. His 4 arms were crossed over his massive chest. He looked at the way a person might look at a small and uninteresting insect. "The humans finally joined the Galactic Alliance," continued. "After centuries of watching from their little world, they decide they want to play with the real soldiers, and they send us this." Laughter filled the hall. It came from all directions. They made a deep rumbling sound. They clicked their armored plates together. Even the quiet made soft hissing noises of amusement. Did not move. She did not speak. She simply stood there and let them laugh. A young cadet scuttled closer to her. His 6 legs moved in a pattern that seemed almost nervous. "Human," he said, his voice clicking with each word, "do you understand what this place is? This is the academy. Only the strongest warriors from each species are allowed to train here. Our people have warrior castes that breed for combat. We are born to fight. What are you born to do?" Looked at him, her face showed nothing. "I was born to live," she said simply. More laughter followed this answer. Stepped even closer until he was standing directly in front of her. He had to bend down to look at her face. His shadow covered her completely. "Earth has no warrior caste," he said. "We have studied your species. You have farmers and builders and makers of machines, but you have no special class of people bred for war. Your soldiers are ordinary citizens who simply pick up weapons when needed. They are not true warriors." "That is correct," said. "Then why are you here?" "Because my planet asked me to come." Laughed again, but this time there was an edge to it. "Your planet asked you. Did they not have anyone better, anyone stronger, anyone who was actually trained for combat?" "They had many choices," said. "They chose me." This answer seemed to confuse the aliens around her. A cadet pushed forward, his armored body making grinding sounds as he moved. "Explain this," he demanded. "If your people have no warriors, how do you fight your wars?" Looked at him. For a moment something flickered in her eyes, something that they could not quite identify. "Everyone fights," she said. "When war comes to Earth, everyone fights. The farmers and the builders and the makers of machines, the young and the old, the strong and the weak. We have no warrior caste because we do not need one." "That is foolish," they said. "War requires specialized training. It requires bodies built for combat. It requires minds conditioned for violence. Your ordinary citizens cannot possibly match true warriors." "And yet," said quietly, "we are still here." The laughter stopped. The hall became very quiet. The aliens looked at each other, uncertain of what to make of this strange human and her strange words. Broke the silence. "You speak boldly for someone so small, so weak, so alone in a place where you clearly do not belong." He turned to address the other cadets. "This is what happens when a species grows too comfortable. They forget what strength really means. They forget that the universe is not a safe place. They send their ordinary people to train with true warriors and expect them to survive. He looked back at, "You will not survive here, human. The training will break you in the first week. And when it does, you will crawl back to your safe little world and tell them that humans are not ready for the stars." Said nothing. She simply looked at him with those calm, steady eyes. In the crowd of cadets, a young named watched the human with curiosity. He had studied many species, but humans were new to him. He had read the reports about Earth. He knew that humans were physically weak compared to most spacefaring species. They had no natural armor, no claws, no special senses. By all logical measures, they should not have survived their own planet, let alone reached the stars. And yet they had. Wondered if perhaps the other cadets were missing something important. He wondered if the human silence was not weakness but something else entirely. He had seen that look in her eyes when they questioned her. It was not fear. It was not confusion. It was something older and deeper, something that made him, for just a moment, feel afraid. But he said nothing. He simply watched and waited. The ceremony continued. Gave a long speech about the honor of the academy and the glory of combat. He spoke of the great warriors who had trained here and the battles they had won. He spoke of strength and power and the natural order of the universe. Listened to every word. She did not react. She did not respond. She simply stood there, small and quiet, surrounded by giants who thought she was nothing. They did not see her hands. They did not notice how her fingers moved slightly, testing the flexibility of her joints. They did not see the way her eyes moved around the room, noting the positions of every exit, every obstacle, every potential weapon. They did not understand that the small human woman in the gray uniform was not afraid. She was studying them. After the ceremony, the cadets were assigned to their training groups. Found herself walking through the massive corridors of the academy, looking for her quarters. The hallways were empty now, and her footsteps echoed in the silence. "Human!" She stopped and turned. Behind her stood a young. He was smaller than, with skin that was more green than blue. He wore the same gray uniform as her, marking him as a fellow first-year cadet. "My name is Wu," he said. Blinked. "That is a human name." "I know. I chose it when I learned I would be training alongside a human. I thought it might help us communicate." "Why would you want to communicate with me? Your people seem to think I am worthless." The young tilted his head. "My people think many things, not all of those things are correct." He paused. "I am curious about you, about your species, about why you are really here." Studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it changed her entire face. "Walk with me," she said, "and I will tell you a story about Earth." They walked together through the empty halls, the giant and the human, and began to speak of her home. 3 weeks passed at the Galactic Military Academy. 3 weeks of training that pushed every cadet to their limits. 3 weeks of proving that she could survive. She was not the fastest. Though with their 6 legs could outrun her easily, she was not the strongest. Even the weakest could lift objects that would crush her flat. She was not the toughest, that could take hits that would kill her instantly. But she was still there. Every morning, the cadets gathered for physical training. They ran through obstacle courses designed for beings much larger and stronger than humans. Could not jump as high as the others. She could not climb as fast. She could not break through barriers that the aliens smashed with ease. So she found other ways. When walls were too high to jump, she found cracks to climb. When obstacles were too heavy to move, she found paths around them. When challenges required strength she did not have, she used speed and timing instead. She was never first. She was rarely even in the middle, but she always finished. The other cadets did not know what to make of her. "She is stubborn," I said one day, watching struggle through a mud pit that reached up to her chest. "Like a small animal that does not know when to die." "She is foolish," A replied. She wastes energy on tasks she cannot complete properly. A true warrior would know their limits. But Wu, the young who had befriended her, said nothing. He simply watched, and he noticed things that the others did not. He noticed that never made the same mistake twice. He noticed that she studied every challenge carefully before attempting it. He noticed that she asked questions constantly, learning everything she could about the techniques and abilities of other species. He noticed that she was getting better. Slowly, but steadily, she was improving in ways that should not have been possible for someone with her physical limitations. One evening, he found her in the training hall, long after the other cadets had gone to sleep. She was practicing combat forms, moving through sequences of strikes and blocks with careful precision. "You should rest," he said. "Tomorrow is the endurance trial. You will need your strength." "Did not stop moving. I will rest when I am ready." The others say you are wasting your time. They say that no amount of practice will make you strong enough to compete with true warriors. The others say many things, completed her sequence and finally stopped, turning to face him. "Do you believe them?" Wu considered the question carefully. "I believe that you are unlike any soldier I have ever seen. You do not fight like us. You do not think like us. But I am beginning to wonder if that might be your advantage rather than your weakness." Smiled that small, quiet smile of hers. "My people have a saying, the tree that bends does not break." What does that mean? It means that flexibility can be stronger than rigidity. It means that adapting to circumstances can be more powerful than resisting them. She began her practice again, moving through the forms with fluid grace. Your species are bred for combat. You are born with strength and size and natural weapons. But because of this, you fight in predictable ways. You rely on the gifts you were given. And humans? Humans were given nothing. We have no claws, no armor, no great strength. Everything we have, we had to create for ourselves. Every advantage we possess, we had to earn. She paused mid-movement, holding a striking pose. We learned to fight not because we were born to it, but because we would have died without it. That makes our approach to combat very different from yours. Wu thought about this. Different how? "You will see," said, "eventually." The next day brought trouble. The endurance trial was held in a massive arena at the center of the academy. Cadets were divided into teams and forced to complete a series of challenges that tested their stamina, their coordination, and their ability to work together under pressure. Was placed on a team with 3 cadets. They made it clear from the start that they did not want her there. "Stay out of our way, human," the team leader said. His name was, and he was larger than the other with a shell pattern that marked him as highborn. "We will complete this trial without your help. If you slow us down, we will leave you behind." Simply nodded and said nothing. The trial began. The first challenge was a climbing wall covered in shifting handholds that moved and changed position randomly. Though with their 6 legs, scaled it quickly. Took longer, having to plan each move carefully, but she kept pace well enough. The second challenge was a balance beam over a pit filled with something that looked like liquid fire. They crossed it easily, their multiple legs giving them perfect stability. Moved more slowly, arms out for balance, but she crossed without falling. The third challenge was where everything went wrong. It was a weight-carrying task. Each team had to move a series of heavy objects from one end of the arena to the other. The objects were designed for the strength levels of the weakest species that usually attended the academy. Unfortunately, the weakest species that usually attended was still much stronger than humans. Could barely lift the smallest object. She tried, straining with everything she had, but she could only move it a few centimeters at a time. And his team finished moving their objects and looked back at her with disgust. "We told you not to slow us down," said. "Now we will fail this trial because of you." "Go ahead without me," said, still struggling with the weight. "Complete the trial. I will finish on my own." "There is no finishing on your own. This is a team trial. If all members do not complete it together, the entire team fails. Stop pushing. She looked at the heavy object. She looked at the distance she needed to cover. She looked at the time remaining on the trial clock. Then she began to think. "How much time do we have?" she asked. "Not enough for you to drag that thing across the arena." "That is not what I asked. How much time exactly?" "Check the clock, 12 minutes. Nodded, she walked around the object, studying it from all angles. She examined the floor of the arena. She looked at the path that led to the finish line. "What are you doing?" demanded. "We do not have time for you to think. We need to move." "Give me a moment." Crouched down and felt the surface of the arena floor. It was smooth, almost slippery. Then she looked at her object again. It was roughly cube-shaped with a flat bottom. She said, "I need you to help me turn this onto its side." Why?" "Because if I can get it onto the corner edge, I can roll it instead of carrying it. The floor is smooth enough. The shape is right. I cannot lift this weight, but I can push it if it is already in motion." Stared at her. "That is insane. The rules say we must carry the objects." "No, the rules say we must move the objects from one end to the other. They do not specify how." For a long moment did nothing. The clock continued to count down, 11 minutes, 10. Then slowly, he reached down with 4 of his 6 legs and helped tip the heavy object onto its corner. It balanced there, wobbling slightly, placed her hands on it and pushed. The object began to roll, slowly at first, then faster as it built momentum. She ran alongside it, keeping it balanced, guiding it toward the finish line. The other cadets in the arena stopped to watch. No one had ever completed a weight trial this way before. No one had ever thought to try. Reached the finish line with 2 minutes to spare. Stood beside her, his multiple eyes blinking in something that might have been shock. "How did you know that would work?" "I did not know for certain," admitted. "But I knew that I could not succeed by doing things the way you do them, so I had to find my own way." Word of what happened spread through the academy. By evening, everyone knew about the human who had solved the weight trial by thinking instead of lifting. Some laughed and called it a trick. Others said it was cheating. But the instructors reviewed the rules and found that had broken none of them. And in his quarters high above the arena, Commander heard the story and frowned. The human was becoming a problem. She was not supposed to last this long. She was not supposed to find solutions that no one else had considered. She was not supposed to be making the mighty warrior species look foolish. Something would have to be done about her. Called his aides and began to plan. That night, Wu found in her quarters, reading something on a small tablet. "You made an enemy today," he said. "Does not like to be surprised, and he definitely does not like being made to look wrong." Did not look up from her reading. "I made an enemy the moment I walked through the academy doors. What happened today changes nothing. It changes everything. Before he thought you were harmless. Now he knows you are clever and stubborn. That is a dangerous combination in his eyes. Then perhaps he should have studied humans more carefully before dismissing us." Wu sat down across from her. "What are you reading?" "The Academy records, combat trial histories, victory statistics for different species." She finally looked up. "I am studying my enemies." The other cadets. Everyone set down her tablet. "Your people spent centuries fighting each other before joining the Galactic Alliance. You developed combat techniques, bred warrior classes, built entire cultures around the art of war. You think that makes you better than us, superior. Does it not?" Smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "My people spent the same centuries doing the exact same thing. The only difference is that we did it without natural advantages. We did it with soft skin and dull teeth and bodies that break easily. We survived not because we were stronger than our enemies, but because we learned to be smarter than them." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "Wants to break me. He wants to prove that humans do not belong here. He will try something soon. A challenge, probably. Something designed to humiliate me or force me to quit. What will you do? His eyes reflected the distant starlight. I will do what humans have always done. I will adapt. I will survive. And I will make him regret underestimating me. In the days that followed, Wu watched the human more closely than ever. And the more he watched, the more he began to understand something that the other species had missed. Humans were not weak. They were just a different kind of strong. The challenge came on the 37th day. Was eating her morning meal in the cadet dining hall when Commander appeared. He walked through the room like a storm moving across an open plain. Cadets scrambled to get out of his way. Conversations died. The only sound was the heavy thud of his footsteps on the metal floor. He stopped directly in front of his table. "Human," he said, the word dripped with contempt. "You have caused quite a stir in my academy. Some of the instructors think you have potential. They say you show creativity and determination. They suggest that perhaps I was wrong about your species." Set down her eating utensil. "And what do you think, Commander?" "I think that tricks and cleverness are not the same as true warrior ability. I think you have been lucky. I think it is time to see what you are really made of." The dining hall was completely silent now. Every cadet had stopped eating. Every eye was fixed on the confrontation unfolding in the center of the room. "There will be a combat trial," continued. "Tomorrow in the main arena. 3 rounds of hand-to-hand combat against opponents of my choosing. No weapons, no tools, no tricks. Just you against true warriors fighting until one side cannot continue. And if I refuse?" Smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Then you admit that Earth has no place in the Alliance. You go home in shame, and your species spends another century watching from the sidelines while the real powers shape the galaxy." Was quiet for a long moment. Then she pushed back her chair and stood. She was so much smaller than that she had to crane her neck to look at his face. "I accept," she said. Whispers rippled through the crowd. The other cadets exchanged glances. Some looked excited at the prospect of watching the human get destroyed. Others, a smaller number, looked worried. Smile widened. "Excellent. The trial begins at midday tomorrow. Try to get some rest, human. You will need it." He turned and walked away. The dining hall remained silent until he was gone. Then everyone began talking at once. Wu pushed through the crowd to reach. His green-blue face was creased with concern. "This is a trap. You know that, right? He will choose the strongest, most brutal fighters in the academy. He wants to hurt you. He wants to make an example of you." "I know." "Then why did you accept?" Picked up her food tray and began walking toward the exit. "Because refusing would have been worse. At least this way, I have a chance to fight." "A chance to fight 3 opponents chosen specifically to destroy you. That is not a chance. That is an execution." Maybe, paused at the doorway and looked back at him. Or maybe has made the same mistake that everyone else makes about humans. Maybe he thinks he knows what we are capable of. Maybe he is wrong. She walked out, leaving Wu standing in the middle of the dining hall, surrounded by the excited chatter of cadets already placing bets on how quickly the human would fall. The hours until the trial passed quickly, too quickly. Spent most of that time alone in her quarters. She reviewed combat footage of every species that might be chosen as her opponents. She practiced movements and techniques. She stretched and prepared her body for what was coming. But mostly she thought about home. She thought about the mountains of her childhood, where she had hiked with her father until her small legs could carry her no further. She thought about the training halls where she had learned to fight, where masters had pushed her until she collapsed and then made her get up again. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived a war and raised 5 children and died at the age of 97, still sharp and fierce until her final breath. She thought about all the generations of humans who had come before her, All the people who had faced impossible odds and refused to give up. All the survivors, the fighters, the stubborn fools who looked at death and said, "Not today." She was carrying all of them with her into that arena. When midday came, the arena was packed. It seemed like every cadet in the academy had come to watch. They filled the observation platforms, crowding together, jostling for better views. The noise of their voices was like thunder. Walked into the arena alone. She wore the simple combat uniform of the academy. Her hands were wrapped in protective cloth. Her feet were bare on the cool metal floor. Across from her, Commander sat in the position of judgment. Beside him sat other high-ranking officers, including several from species had never seen before. They had come specifically to watch the human fail. "The rules are simple," announced, his voice amplified to reach every corner of the arena. 3 rounds of combat. Each round continues until one fighter is unable to continue. The human must win all 3 rounds to pass. If she loses even once, she fails. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. 3 consecutive victories against fresh opponents. It was almost impossible. "Send in the first opponent," commanded. The doors on the opposite side of the arena opened. A warrior stepped through. He was enormous, even by standards. His armored plates gleamed like polished copper. His hands ended in blunt fingers capable of crushing bone. He moved with the confident slowness of a creature that had never met anything capable of hurting it. "First round," said, "begin." The charged. He was faster than had expected. She barely managed to dodge his first strike, spinning away as his fist slammed into the floor where she had been standing. The impact left a dent in the metal. The crowd roared with excitement. The turned and swung again, ducked under his arm and moved to his side, looking for openings. His armor was thick, but it was not perfect. There were gaps at the joints where the plates connected, small vulnerabilities that a clever fighter could exploit. She just had to survive long enough to use them. The was relentless. He attacked with powerful, sweeping strikes that would have killed her instantly if they connected. Dodged and weaved, using her small size and quick reflexes to stay just ahead of his fists. But she was getting tired. Each dodge took energy. Each movement cost her something, and the showed no signs of slowing down. The crowd began to chant. They wanted blood. They wanted the human to fall. Blocked out the noise. She focused on her opponent, watching his movements, learning his patterns. Every fighter had patterns. Every attack had a tell. She just had to find them. There, the always dropped his right shoulder slightly before throwing a left hook. It was a small movement, barely noticeable, but it was consistent. Waited. The charged again. His right shoulder dropped. His left fist came around in a devastating arc. Was already moving. She stepped inside his reach, too close for him to hit her effectively. Her wrapped hands found the gap in his armor at the left elbow joint. She struck once, twice, 3 times, targeting the sensitive tissue beneath the plate. The howled in pain and stumbled back. His left arm hung limp at his side. The crowd fell silent. Did not hesitate. She pressed her advantage, moving in again, striking the same joint from a different angle. The tried to defend with his right arm, but he was off balance now, confused by the pain. She dropped low and swept his legs out from under him. The massive warrior crashed to the floor. The impact shook the entire arena. Before he could recover, was on him, applying pressure to the nerve cluster at the base of his skull. It was a technique designed for much smaller opponents. It should not have worked on a. But human knowledge of anatomy was not limited to human bodies. Earth's doctors and fighters had studied every species they could find, learning their weaknesses, their vulnerabilities, their pressure points. The went limp. Stood up, she was breathing hard. Her hands ached from striking armored flesh, but she was still standing. "First round," she said quietly, "complete." The silence in the arena stretched for what felt like eternity. Then slowly, a few scattered claps began to sound. Then more, and more, until the entire crowd was applauding not for the human but for the spectacle they had just witnessed. Commander's face was like stone. He gestured sharply, and medical staff rushed to remove the unconscious. "Second opponent," he commanded. The doors opened again. This time, a step through. She was female, with dark blue skin and silver markings that identified her as a combat veteran. Her forearms were thick with muscle, and her eyes held the cold focus of a professional killer. Took a deep breath. She was already tired. Her hands were already hurting, and this opponent looked even more dangerous than the first. But she was not afraid. She had trained her entire life for moments like this. Every bruise, every scar, every failure had led her here. She was ready. Second round announced, "Begin." They did not charge. She approached carefully, studying with calculating eyes. She had watched the first fight. She had seen how the human moved, how she exploited weaknesses. She would not make the same mistakes as the... They circled each other slowly. The crowd leaned forward, sensing that this fight would be different, more tactical, more dangerous. The struck first, using two of her arms to attack while the other two defended. It was a technique that no human could match, could barely track all four limbs at once. She took a hit to her shoulder that sent her spinning. Pain exploded through her arm. She rolled with the impact and came up in a defensive stance, but she could feel the bruise already forming. The smiled. "You are fast, human, but you cannot dodge forever, and every time I touch you, you break a little more." She was right, knew it. A war of attrition against her was a war she would lose. So she changed tactics. Instead of retreating, she advanced. She moved directly toward inside the range of those devastating four-armed strikes. There was caught off guard. Humans were supposed to run. Humans were supposed to hide. They were not supposed to attack. Grabbed one of the arms and pulled, using the alien's own momentum against her. At the same time, she struck at the sensitive nerve cluster beneath the arm. The grunted in pain and tried to grab with her other arms, but was already moving, sliding around to this back, staying too close for the alien to get proper leverage. It became a grappling match, strength against technique, 4 arms against 2. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the tiny human wrestled with the massive warrior, neither able to get a decisive advantage. Then found her opening. They had a joint injury on her lower left arm, old damage not fully healed, had noticed it during their circling, a slight stiffness in the movement. She targeted that weakness with everything she had. The screamed as her old injury was reawakened. Her grip faltered for just a moment. That moment was enough. Applied a chokehold. It was a human technique designed by her ancestors thousands of years ago. The struggled, her 4 arms scraping its grip, but the hold was secure. 10 seconds later, the was unconscious. Released her and stepped back, gasping for air. Her entire body ached. Her shoulder throbbed where she had been hit, but she was still standing. "Second round," she managed to say, "complete." The crowd erupted. The arena had gone mad. Aliens of every species were on their feet, shouting, arguing, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. A human had defeated 2 of the strongest warriors in the academy. A creature with no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities had brought down and using nothing but skill and determination. It should not have been possible. And yet there she stood, Park, bruised, bleeding from a cut on her forehead, her right shoulder hanging at an angle that suggested serious damage, but standing. In the observation platform, Commander's face had turned a deep purple color that Wu had never seen before. The Commander's 4 hands gripped the railing so tightly that the metal was beginning to bend. "Impossible," growled. "This is some kind of trick, some human deception." One of the officers beside him, an elder with wise eyes, spoke quietly. "There is no deception, Commander. We have all seen the same thing. The human fights with skill we did not expect. Perhaps we should reconsider." "Reconsider nothing," stood abruptly. "There is still one round remaining, and for this round I will choose the opponent myself." He began to walk toward the arena floor. The crowd noticed immediately. Whispers spread like fire through dry grass. The commander himself was entering the arena. This was unprecedented. Officers did not fight cadets. It violated every tradition of the academy. But did not care about tradition. He cared about winning. He cared about proving that humans were nothing. Watched him approach. Her face showed no emotion, but inside her heart was pounding. She had studied. She knew his reputation. He had won over 200 documented combat encounters. He had killed enemy champions with his bare hands. He was not just a commander, he was a legend. And she was already injured, already exhausted, already pushed beyond what her body should be able to endure. Stepped into the arena and removed his officer's coat, revealing arms covered in silver scars. Each scar was a trophy, a memory of battles won against worthy opponents. "You have impressed me, human," he said, loud enough for the entire crowd to hear. "I did not think it was possible, but you have impressed me. You have defeated 2 warriors who should have crushed you easily." "Thank you," said. "But now you face me, and I am not like the others. I have no old injuries for you to exploit. I have no patterns for you to learn. I have spent my entire life perfecting the art of combat." He began to stretch, his 4 arms moving in synchronized patterns. "You cannot defeat me." "Maybe not," admitted, "but I am going to try." Laughed. It was a genuine sound, almost respectful. "I can see why your species has survived. You do not know when to quit. It is admirable, foolish but admirable." He settled into a fighting stance. "Third round, let us finish this." They began to circle. Moved carefully, watching for any hint of pattern in his movements. But he was right. He was different from the others. He moved like water, smooth and unpredictable. His 4 arms created a wall of potential attacks that seemed impossible to penetrate. He struck without warning. The blow caught in the ribs before she could react. She felt something crack. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. She stumbled backward, barely managing to keep her feet. "That was just a tap," said. "A warning, the next one will be harder." He attacked again, tried to dodge, but her injured body would not obey her commands. Another blow landed, this time on her already damaged shoulder. She screamed as fire shot through her arm. The crowd was silent now. The earlier excitement had faded. What was happening no longer looked like a fight. It looked like an execution. Advanced steadily, striking at will. Could not block his attacks. She could not dodge them. All she could do was endure them, taking hit after hit while searching desperately for some way to fight back. "Why do you continue?" asked, pausing in his assault. "You cannot win. Your body is breaking. Every moment you stay in this arena, I damage you more. Surrender now and you can leave with some dignity." Was on her knees. Blood dripped from her mouth. Her vision was blurring at the edges. Every breath felt like someone was stabbing her in the chest. But she raised her head and looked at him. "Let me tell you something about humans," she said, her voice raw but steady. "We come from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. Our planet has extreme temperatures, deadly predators, poisonous plants and diseases that can wipe out entire populations." She pushed herself to her feet. It took everything she had. Her legs shook. Her arms hung useless at her sides, but she stood. "We have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. By every logical measure, we should have gone extinct 1,000 times over, but we did not. Do you want to know why?" Watched her with something that might have been curiosity. "Tell me." "Because we are too stubborn to die." Took a step forward, then another. "We fought when we should have run. We survived when we should have fallen. We got up every single time we were knocked down, and we kept fighting until we won or until our hearts stopped beating. She was standing in front of him now, close enough to touch. She raised her hands, though even that small movement sent waves of agony through her body. You think Earth breeds no warriors because we have no warrior caste. You think we are weak because we do not have natural weapons or armor. But you are wrong. She looked up at him, this giant who could kill her with a single blow. Every human is a warrior. We do not breed warriors because we do not need to. We are all born into a war for survival that never ends. From our first breath to our last, we fight against disease, against nature, against each other, against everything that tries to kill us. His eyes narrowed. Pretty words, but words do not win battles. No, agreed, but understanding does, and now I understand something about you. What could you possibly understand about me? Smiled. It was a broken smile, made terrible by the blood on her teeth. I understand that you are afraid. The arena went utterly silent. You called this trial because you were afraid, continued. You saw me surviving when I should have failed, and it frightened you. Not because of what I am, but because of what I represent. If a single human can stand against your best warriors, what happens when there are millions of us? Billions. What happens when my species joins the alliance not as observers, but as equals? His face twisted. You dare. You are afraid that everything you believe about strength is wrong. You are afraid that all your natural advantages mean nothing against a species that learned to fight without them. You are afraid that the universe is about to change, and that you will no longer be at the top. Struck her. It was not a calculated blow. It was not a skilled technique. It was pure rage, a wild swing born of anger and wounded pride. And because it was wild, saw it coming. She moved, not quickly. Her body was too damaged for speed, but she moved in the right direction at the right moment. His fist passed through the space where she had been. His momentum carried him forward. He was off balance for just an instant. Strug. She hit the nerve cluster at the base of his skull. The same technique she had used on the. Her hands screamed in protest. She felt bones shift in ways they were not supposed to shift. Stumbled, his forearms went limp for just a moment. Struck again, and again, targeting the same spot, pouring every last bit of strength she had into each blow. Fell to one knee. The crowd erupted in chaos. Officers in the observation platform were on their feet. Cadets were screaming. The entire academy seemed to shake with the force of their disbelief. But was not finished. She grabbed his head and pulled it toward her, applying a chokehold just as she had done with the. Fought against her grip, his forearms grabbing at her body, trying to tear her away. But his movements were slow now, uncoordinated. The nerve strikes had done their work. I will not kill you, whispered in his ear. I am not here to destroy. I am here to prove a point. Remember this moment, Commander. Remember what a single human did to you with nothing but determination and the skills she learned from her people. Struggles grew weaker. His vision was fading. The last thing he saw before unconsciousness claimed him was the face of the human who had defeated him. She was smiling. Released him and stepped back. She was shaking. Her body was screaming at her to collapse, to give in to the injuries she had sustained. But she did not fall. She turned to face the observation platform, where the officers sat in stunned silence. Third round, she said. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but in the silence of the arena, everyone heard it. Complete. Then finally, her legs gave out. Wu was the first to reach her. He caught her before she hit the ground, his large arms supporting her broken body with surprising gentleness. You did it, he said. You actually did it. Looked up at him. Her eyes were unfocused, but there was satisfaction in them. I told you, she murmured. We are all warriors, every single one of us. Then she passed out. The arena remained silent for a long moment. Then slowly the applause began. It started with a few cadets, then more, then the officers in the observation platform, then everyone. They were not cheering for Earth. They were not cheering for humanity. They were cheering for the small, stubborn, impossibly determined creature who had just done the impossible. And somewhere in that crowd, something fundamental had changed. The universe had been put on notice. Humanity was coming, and they were not to be underestimated. Woke in the medical wing of the academy. The ceiling above her was white and clean. Strange machines hummed quietly around her bed, monitoring her body and helping it heal. She had been unconscious for 3 days, according to the medical officer who checked on her. 3 days, it felt like 3 minutes. She tried to sit up, but her body protested immediately. Pain shot through her chest, her shoulder, her arms. The doctors had repaired most of the damage, but healing still took time, even with advanced alien technology. "You should rest," said a familiar voice. Turned her head. Wu was sitting in a chair beside her bed. He looked tired, as if he had been there for a long time. "How long have you been watching me?" she asked. "Since they brought you here. Someone had to make sure you did not try to get up and fight someone else while you were recovering." Laughed, then immediately regretted it as her ribs reminded her of their fragile state. "What happened after I passed out?" Wu leaned forward. Everything changed. Commander was taken to the medical wing as well. He is still there. The nerve damage you caused was extensive. He will recover, but it will take time. And the academy? In chaos. Good chaos, I think. The officers have been meeting constantly, discussing what happened, what it means. Some of them want to dismiss the trial, call it invalid, but they cannot. Too many people saw it. Too many records were made. You won fairly and clearly. Closed her eyes. She remembered the fight, the pain, the moment when she thought she could not continue, the moment when she chose to continue anyway. "The other cadets," Wu continued, "are talking about you constantly. Most of them still do not understand what they saw. They know you won, but they cannot explain how. A human defeating and the commander himself. It defies everything they believed about the universe." "Good," said. "Maybe now they will start believing new things." Over the following days, had many visitors. The first was the team leader from the weight trial. He stood awkwardly at the foot of her bed, his 6 legs shifting nervously. "I came to apologize," he said. "I treated you poorly. I thought you were weak, useless. I was wrong." "Yes," agreed, "you were." Flinched, then relaxed when he saw the slight smile on her face. "You are not making this easy." "Why should I? Apologies should be uncomfortable. Otherwise, people do not learn from their mistakes." Was silent for a moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I see why you won. You do not think like the rest of us. That is your advantage." One of them said, "We have many." The next visitor was the named. He had watched her from the very first day, when had mocked her in the great hall. Now he came to her bedside with questions. "I have studied your species extensively since the trial," he said. "I have read everything I could find about human history and culture. I still do not fully understand." "What confuses you?" "Your wars, your conflicts, the sheer amount of violence in your past." His pale eyes were troubled. "Your species has fought itself constantly on scales that dwarf anything in our own history. Millions of deaths, cities destroyed, entire civilizations erased, and yet you call yourselves peaceful now. How?" Considered the question carefully. "We are not peaceful, we are controlled. There is a difference." "Explain." "Humans are violent by nature. We carry aggression in our blood, in our thoughts, in our very souls. For most of our history, we channeled that violence against each other. Wars, conquests, revolutions. We nearly destroyed ourselves more than once." She paused, remembering lessons she had learned as a child. Stories of bombs that could level cities. Weapons that could end all life on Earth. The fragile moments when her species had stood on the edge of extinction and somehow pulled back. But we learned, she continued. Slowly, painfully, we learned to control our nature. We created laws and institutions to manage our aggression. We built societies that gave us outlets for our violence that did not destroy us. Sports, competitions, challenges. We found ways to be warriors without always being at war. And now we bring that controlled aggression to the stars. We are not gentle. We are not soft. But we have learned when to fight and when to hold back. We have learned that strength without wisdom leads only to destruction. Was quiet for a long time. I think, he said finally, that my people have much to learn from yours. Everyone does, said, just as we have much to learn from you. That is the point of joining the alliance, not to dominate but to grow together. On the 7th day, Commander came to see her. He walked slowly, his movements careful and measured. The damage had done to him was still healing. 2 of his 4 arms were in support slings, and his face bore marks of exhaustion and pain. But he had come. Human, he said. His voice was quieter than before, less commanding. Commander. They looked at each other in silence. 2 warriors who had fought and survived. 2 enemies who had something new between them now, not friendship, not trust, but understanding. I have been thinking about what you said in the arena, said, about fear, about what your species represents. And you were right, I was afraid, not of you personally, but of what your victory would mean. For centuries, they have been among the strongest species in the Alliance. We have shaped its policies, led its armies, determined its future. The thought that a species without our natural advantages could match us, defeat us, it challenged everything I believed. Said nothing, she waited. But you have also made me realize something else, continued. Our strength has made us lazy. We rely on our bodies, our 4 arms, our size. We do not adapt. We do not innovate. We assume that what has always worked will continue to work forever. He lowered himself into the chair beside her bed. It was a strangely humble gesture for someone of his rank. Your species is dangerous, he said. Not because you are strong, but because you never stop getting stronger. You take your weaknesses and turn them into advantages. You face impossible odds and find ways to win anyway. The Alliance has never encountered anything like you. Is that a compliment or a warning? Asked. Almost smiled. Both. I came here to tell you something. I was wrong to dismiss Earth. I was wrong to think that humans had no place among us, and I am prepared to say so publicly to the entire Academy and to the Alliance leadership. This surprised. She had expected many things from, but not an open admission of error. Why? Because it is the truth, and because I have spent my life teaching cadets that honor requires us to face truth, no matter how uncomfortable. He stood, wincing slightly at the movement. You have earned your place here, Cadet Park, more than earned it. I look forward to seeing what you accomplish in the years ahead. He turned and walked away, leaving alone with her thoughts. 1 week later was released from the medical wing. Her injuries had healed, though the doctors warned her that some pain might linger for months. She did not care. She was alive. She was still standing. She walked through the corridors of the academy, and this time everything was different. The cadets who saw her did not laugh. They did not mock. Some of them actually moved aside to let her pass, a gesture of respect usually reserved for senior officers. Others nodded in recognition, acknowledging her as an equal. She reached the great hall where she had first been humiliated. The same high ceilings, the same massive doors, the same room designed to make small creatures feel small. But did not feel small anymore. A group of first-year cadets was gathered near the entrance. New arrivals, still learning the ways of the academy. Among them noticed something unexpected: 3 humans. They were young, nervous, clearly overwhelmed by the alien environment around them. They reminded of herself on that first day. She walked toward them. As she approached, the other cadets moved aside. The three humans looked up, their eyes widening as they recognized her. "You are Park," one of them said, "a young woman with dark hair and sharp eyes. We heard about what you did." "What is your name?" asked. Looked at the other two, a young man named Lee and another woman named Myra. They stood straight despite their nervousness. They met her eyes despite their fear. "Good. Welcome to the academy," said. "The first weeks will be difficult. The other species will underestimate you. They will mock you, challenge you, try to break you. This is normal. This is expected." She paused, making sure they were listening. "But remember this. You carry something in your blood that they do not understand. You come from a species that has faced extinction 100 times and survived every single time. You are the product of millions of years of struggle, adaptation, and determination." She smiled, the same smile she had given in the arena. "They asked why Earth breeds no warriors. Now you know the answer. We are all warriors, every single one of us. We just had to come out here and show them." The three young humans stood a little behind. Wu watched from a distance. He had seen his friend go from a mocked outsider to a legend in a matter of weeks. He had watched her change the academy, change the way species thought about each other, change everything. And this, he realized, was just the beginning. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy, not with warships or weapons, but with something far more dangerous. They had arrived with the stubborn, unbreakable, impossible determination to survive and thrive, no matter what obstacles stood in their way. The universe would never be the same. And somewhere out among the stars, other species were already hearing the story. The story of a small human woman who had walked into the most prestigious military academy in the known universe and reminded everyone of a simple truth. Never underestimate a human. Because when you look at them, you are looking at warriors. Every single one.